So welcome to Engaging Students Effectively in Live Online Class Sessions. My name is Mike Johnson, and I am a consultant at the Center for Teaching and Learning here at Brigham Young University. I primarily work with life sciences and fine arts and communications, as well as the swell classes and athletics. But I also have a role as a kind of a academic technology consultant, so I end up talking to people from all across campus. And we work with people on projects and help them find technologies to meet their needs and help them use the technologies that we have readily available. So I like to do that. This particular presentation isn't predominant. I mean, there's going to be some discussion of technologies, and we're gonna try a few technologies out quickly. But it's not necessarily a how-to on all the technologies, but we'd be happy to meet with folks if you are looking for help in that sense. I have some colleagues, Ken Plummer and Susan Eliason, who are also consultants here, and one of our student assistants, Alex Bollinger, who are going to be watching the chat. I'm going to try to keep an eye on it, but I find that when I read it, you'll suddenly, if I'm reading the chat, you'll notice that I will pause and lose track of what I was thinking. So that's right one thing. Exactly. And so that's why it's great if you can have if you have a TA, they can help you with watching the chat so that students can use that as kind of a back channel during class to pose questions, and you can pause during class and those kinds of things and take some of those questions. But if you don't have a TA, what do? Well, that can be a role that is that gets distributed across class sessions among different students. And a lot of times they'll be very happy to do that, and kind of it can be an empowering thing. So let's continue. So we're going to start off with a little Zoom poll. Yeehaw. And this is now truth or consequences. No, just kidding. But I want you to be honest, and we're not going to go back and try to find out who said yes or no, but our options here for this poll are yes, I have zoomed out or zoned out in a Zoom meeting. No, never. I'd rather not say, and what was that? Which means you're zoned out already. So let's go ahead and launch that poll. And you should have that. And we got a lot of votes coming in. We're not going to take a lot of time. We're not going to give you a lot of time to vote because I think we got everybody already. Wow. Because like I've got 59 people. I think we've got that many. We've got, oh, there's still a couple of people that are left to vote. So if I could automatically do it, I might just put in a what was that in forum. Just kidding. I'm going to end that poll, and let's see the results. So 89% of us admit, 6% of us no, never, and then 6% other that we can't really say for sure, except for the 4% who said, what was that? Are kind of self-admitted zoner outers, right? So it is easy to zone out during a Zoom meeting, okay? So that's why we're going to talk about some things that hopefully you can do to not just keep your students busy while you're in class together online, but to actually have them do things that work toward meeting your learning goals for the course and specifically for the course session, right? So we'll show that little, there's somebody zoning out. So our today's goal, again, then, is to help you create more engaging and effective live online class sessions. However, some of the things that we are going to talk about, I know a few people said they're teaching only remote, only asynchronously. There are some things that we're going to talk about today that could easily be adapted to an asynchronous environment. So keep that in mind. So let's discuss quickly some principles, okay? And the first thing we're going to look at is a model known as the community of inquiry, and that's where online learning is both motivated and supported by presence. And there's three types of presence that we discuss in that theory. There's the social presence. That means the students physically there, we're interacting as people. So that would be student to student and teacher to teacher interaction. Cognitive presence, that's where we're interacting with the material in the course. And where those overlap, of course, we get into a combination of interacting with each other about the material of the course. And then where a teacher comes into play, they can help further support that by encouraging and guiding the cognitive or content interaction and the social interaction, and weaving those together and helping encourage engagement. So those help us with these principles. To learn, students need to pay attention. If they zone out, they're not going to learn, right? They will miss stuff. Okay. We also know that active engagement, that means not just receiving information, but actually thinking about it and then using that information, applying it to solving problems and things like that, facilitates learning. Because usually it's that second part that is actually our goal, right? Our value as teachers is not just dispensers of information. However, we also want to include ways that when students are in that reception mode, that they're actively engaged, right? That they're paying attention. And so we need to do things to keep them going. We kind of already talked about this, so I won't spend much time, but learning flourishes when students interact with the content, with the teacher, with their fellow students, and potentially, now you usually can't do this during a live class session, but with their communities. So with their community of practice in the particular discipline, with using their learning to serve the community, that can be their family or their neighborhood or their city or state or country or world or whatever. So be thinking about ways to follow up those live sessions with ways that they can go and use what they've learned to engage in the community. I just throw this in. This is from Cheryl Esplin, who was first counselor in the primary general presidency, talked about this a little bit, that we can use these technologies kind of to see ourselves. Like I can sit there and look at my what I'm displaying to you guys, and that's where it kind of acts like a mirror. Instead, we want to use the technology actually as an opportunity for us to come together and see through that technology to see our students as much as possible. That's why, like, if I have my panel, if I'm not displaying something, I love to have it in the gallery mode, because then I can see multiple students at once and quickly get through those, and I get to see the students. And when I'm in a screen share, I like to scroll through uh, scroll through the students every once in a while and just see that they're with me, and so on and so forth. So okay, so Richard Swan in the kickoff to this this series talked about four areas that that we want to consider when we're teaching, whether that's remotely, in person, how or in blended models. We need to care for the students. We need a course organization. That means a good design to our course that's that has real meaningful goals, that we assess in a way that's aligned with those goals, and we teach in ways that are aligned with that goal. That we help the students find the relevance of what we're teaching, and that we evaluate and assess our students and our own teaching in ways that help us improve and help our students improve, and that are fair indicators of their, and really in these live sessions, we can touch on almost all of this. And actually, I think we could probably highlight all of these questions. Going over these questions a little beyond, but Richard's session, if you haven't seen it, is on our teachanywhere.byu.edu site, and you can go back and watch one of the sessions on that. We're going to take just a quick break before we dive in and see if we have any questions that we need to address at this point. Ken, do you have anything for us?
Just that there's some interest in learning more ways to help students engage in the community. Now that's kind of a virtual community, and one comment was using digital dialogue and switching up in small groups. That might be related to another point that you made.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, excellent. So I'm grateful for both of those comments, and the engaging the students in the community is probably beyond the scope of today's session, but we're taking note of these comments, and we're looking at other other sessions that we want to do, and that actually is a great topic. So we'll keep that in mind and try to get that. So let's go to the first thing. Ideally, have them do something before class that they need to bring to class. That can be a lot of things. These are just a few quick ideas. There's a lot more that we could say about that. Have the students submit questions that they have. That could be in the chat window at the beginning of the class. That could be having them post before class begins on digital dialogue, and there's a new tool there where you can enable voting. And so students could pose their questions and go in and vote for their favorite questions from their peers, and that way you could address the questions that are most pressing to your students that way. There's also live during class, in addition to the chat window, Google Slides. If you happen to use Google Slides as your mode of presentations, they have presenter tools that allow you to open up a back channel question gathering and upvoting of those responses and stuff like that. So that can be helpful. Prepare questions for students to check preparation and readiness for application. So have them come in, either take a quiz beforehand on their preparation or other things like that, or when you get together, actually take those quizzes. That could be polling questions. That could be you send them off to the LMS while you wait and come back and then debrief the quiz together or those kinds of things. And then you could have them start solving the problems, whatever types of, whether that's answering questions about statistics or thinking about deep religious questions or what have you. Before class, they bring their partially solved problem to class, and that gives you a place to really kick off. Another thing you want to do is to orient your students, and so let's take a second. One of those things that we can do is to let them know the purpose of the class session, which we've already done. Another thing we can do is practice using the tools that we're going to use to engage our students together using the Zoom tools. So if you could, I would like all of you to open up your participant window and raise your hand. Okay, so I could, it looks like we've got most everybody. There's a few people that haven't done that yet, but we have that now. We've had a few people put in the chat window already, but I'd like you to go into the chat window and just put, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yes, it is. So it doesn't matter because you're not going to be held to this. If you choose, this is like just what occurs to you at this moment. So if you, all right, we got some good things here. Anything chocolatey, caramel chew, anything with berries. Coconut joy, yes, very good one. Ben and Jerry's core. Does anybody like pistachio from Ben and Jerry's? I love that stuff. Ooh, cherry chocolate chip. So that, that's Cherry Garcia if you're into Ben and Jerry's. Okay, good. So now we've
Dulce de leche. Very good.
There you go. So very nice. I'm going to lower all the hands, I think. Did I do that right? Yeah, I did. Okay, but now you know where to go so that you can do that. And so now we can start using those tools a little bit better. And we will be using those a little bit throughout. So in addition to orienting, like here's what we're going to do. And now you don't have to do practice all the time with your students on using these tools, but sometimes just doing a quick warm up with them so that they have the chat window open and they have the participant window open so that when you do pose a question, it's there and ready is not a bad idea, okay? So we can set norms and expectations. In other words, I want you to think about for a minute what norms you already have in your class when you're teaching face-to-face classes, and think about what else might be important for online meetings. And I'm going to put you into breakout rooms, and we're going to give you just 2.5 minutes to record some ideas of what you might do. And then we're going to say the person in your group who is newest at BYU leads the discussion, or if somebody's coming from LDSBC, which we have several, whoever, just say, how long have you been at your institution? Do that quickly to decide who's gonna lead the discussion, okay? Now we could do this for other roles, and I'll save my time later on in the presentation when I revisit this, but using little tiebreakers like this, I got tiebreakers like this from the game Seen It. If any of you have ever played that, if you have a tie, it'll pull up a thing where it says whoever has the next birthday coming up, or whoever's first name has is the closest to the letter L in the alphabet, or just weird things like that. That can be an easy way to just quickly assign different roles in the breakout rooms. So without further ado, we're going to put you into your groups. I am going to give you, sorry, I got to get this. This document here, so you might want to, I'm going to put this link into the discussion board. Or excuse me, into the chat so that you can access this. Then find the number of the spreadsheet tab that corresponds to your breakout group number, and that's where you can record your answers to these questions. The basic question is repeated in the spreadsheet, so you don't have to remember what's on here, which is another thing you can do if you're using an external tool to have people record their answers, right? Is repeat that question, the task that you're giving the students, so that they can, so that they don't have to go, well, what were we supposed to do, right? So let me, whoops. Let's go 10, whoops. Okay, we're gonna send you to your breakout rooms and we'll see you in about 2.5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. We'll be joined by everybody in just a few minutes. Let's see.
It's probably a good sign that not everybody came back immediately, which meant
Yeah.
that everybody was engaged.
Doing stuff, yeah, exactly. So that is good. I could have last time I did it with just a Google like doc instead of a spreadsheet, and I don't know that it was clear that I had the group names on the bottom tabs, and some groups got that and some groups didn't, I don't think. So I could have, that's one way I can improve. But that brings up a great thing, Ron, that you try things out, and if it doesn't go quite as expected, then you do it better the next time, right?
Yeah, the only question that I had was what group number was I in? It didn't show anywhere.
Okay.
It showed right at the beginning, luckily, and
I think it's in the title bar, where right now it says Zoom meeting if you're in there, and if
oh, up at the top.
yeah.
Okay.
So
And you have to mouse over the window for it to appear, I
here.
noticed.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so that's why it's a little bit, I think that's why the Word document version that I did was probably a little easier. Okay, it looks like we got everybody back, so I'm gonna go back to sharing the screen and pull this over here. Get my chat and my participants. Okay. All right, so in an ideal world, we'd share everything that we did, but here's some suggestions from Charles Graham, who was in the in instructional psychology and technology, and his focus is on blended and online learning. And he says, well, one thing you want to have your students do is not drive while they're in your Zoom meeting, right? It's really hard for them to stay engaged in both activities, and B, it's dangerous. And actually that's A, right? That's the most important thing. Here's a couple other things he suggests. To be in a distraction-free environment as much as possible. To come dressed appropriately. Make sure they have working audio and video for two-way communication, and where possible, this isn't always possible with bandwidth and other constraints, but when you are trying to do anything whole group, it can be nice to have, at least when you're not doing a screen share, if you can have everybody turn on their web cameras and stuff like that, it gives you a chance to connect a little bit more.
Mike,
absolutely. Yes, please.
Mike, I mentioned this to our breakout room, but one of my students just got accepted to law school, and they sent out a list, and I don't have a copy of it. I'm going to have to see if I can get one, of what they called netiquette.
Okay.
So it was internet etiquette, and
Yes.
there were things that, so it set the expectations in advance. They just sent it out to their brand new incoming students, probably in their second and third year also, but talking about what's appropriate and what the expectations are. But I like the idea of doing that in advance so that students, like some of the things you've mentioned, they're ready to go. And I like, using that term netiquette, which sort of something it kind of makes sense to us, but also suggesting that it's not just because we're trying to make their lives miserable. We're trying to set up the best learning experience for them, but also to be polite and considerate of their classmates too.
Yeah, excellent point, Laurie. Thank you so much.
Putting together a group of suggestions would be nice.
Yeah. So we'll be posting, we'll be posting like the links to these documents so you can go back and look there for other ideas from your peers. What Lori brought up on netiquette or appropriate zudicate or whatever, if that takes off, just let them know that it was coined here, right? That's great. I love, there's a couple comments in the thing, like students who rename themselves as reconnecting, haha, so it's harder to call on them. So fun stuff.
That's brilliant.
So now we have hit on the bottom of the hour, and I know if some of you have to leave, that's fine. I'm gonna continue through a few things, so we may have to skip some of the interactions that I have planned, but we will stick around and take questions as well up until the top of the hour if needed. But I know the plan was only a half an hour, so if you do have to go, that's understandable, but we welcome all of you to stay as we go through some other things. So I'll try to go through some of these ideas quickly so that you can consider them, and where it's feasible, we'll have an experience with it. Come early and meet and greet. I like to greet the students by name where possible, get to know your students, give them a chance to share good news, those kinds of things. It's rare that more than one or two students will want to necessarily do that, and it doesn't. And you can usually do that before class starts, but even doing that a little bit the first couple of minutes of class can be a thing that engages them and gets their mind ready for being in class. We have to make the decision, are we going to lecture or not? And it doesn't have to be an either or what have you, but we're going to do a quick Zoom poll because it won't take very long. Are you planning on lecturing in your live sessions? Yes, no, or maybe sometimes. So let me launch that poll, and we'll give you guys a second to respond. We're getting a heavy sometimes with a good contingency of yes and some no. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll there and share the results just so you can see that. But there you go. So if you are lecturing though, here's some quick recommendations for you. Start with some kind of, we call it a pause, but an opportunity for the students to either show that they came prepared, to review previously discussed material, to ask a question that maybe they're not prepared for, to have them at least experience trying out or trying to solve a problem or something like that, that changes their mind frame from the cares of their life in general and kind of helps them focus on, I'm here to learn. Okay, some of that can be that what we talked about, the socializing at the beginning of the class and so forth. But some of that can be content specific, and where you can get them engaged with their classmates, then you're getting the social presence as well as the cognitive presence. So, okay, excellent. Break your lectures into smaller chunks, and then give them time to process that information. So you can engage them with questions during the pause, or tasks, or discussion, or all those kinds of things. You can have them put questions like we've done in our back channel, and so forth. And then end with a pause. So we have one question: lecturing as opposed to what? So that's where we're gonna kind of go next. So if you're not lecturing during live sessions, then before you can of course do pre-recorded lectures or signed readings or any other way that you have that you want to help your students get prepared for what you're going to do in class. But then you do things in class in the Zoom meeting to allow students to process and apply what they've learned. And so we're going to hit some things there. So we can do some things as whole class participation. In the chat window, I'm gonna move off this quickly, but if you have ideas, you're welcome to just continue to post there. What are the challenges of holding a whole class discussion? And then why might you want to or not want to cold call students? Okay, first answer is crickets. Yeah, a small number of people dominate the discussion and the time it takes. Shyness and hesitancy to talk, and nobody wants to be the first. Those are all great things. So what can we do to get around those kinds of things? Well, we can give the students time to think before we start calling on them. We can ask for volunteers using the hand raising application that we saw in the participants poll. We can, if it's closed-ended questions, we can either conduct a poll or we can ask them to engage using the yes, no, go faster, go slower kind of indicators in the participant window and things like that. So let's just show those. We can use other polling technologies and stuff like that. So let's take a quick poll. What modalities are you teaching in this fall? Use the yes button if you're doing class to class or class face to face. The no button if you're doing blended. Go slower if you're doing live remote, and slower if it's on demand, or the go faster if it's the on demand. And we have those coming in, and what you'll see is you'll see numbers over each of these, and that way you can kind of gauge without having to collect official numbers or anything like that. You can just get a feeling. So it's these tools, which you have like 10 options that you can use. You can use them for their design purpose, but you can repurpose them as well. And it's a nice way to take a quick pulse. So I'm going to go ahead and clear all your responses. Thank you for responding to that. Then you can use breakout rooms for a variety of purposes, and we want to go through that quickly. Some guidelines is I like to give a specific task so that the students know what they're supposed to accomplish there. Don't give them too many things to do. If you're going to do a lot of things, break it down to a couple things, put them in the breakout room, have a brief debrief, and then put them back in rather than giving them way too many things to do in the breakout room. Give them a specific amount of time and help them kind of keep track of when things are going to be wrapping up and so forth. Have a specific report back task if possible. So that way when you come back, you can call on a few select groups, or depending on the thing, you might want to hear back from all groups. And then assign roles. You don't have to use the tiebreakers. That was just an idea. You can have lots of other strategies for assigning roles, like who's going to lead the discussion, who's going to report back, who's going to be the scribe, all those kinds of things. In breakout, we're not going to talk about this too much, but you can pre-assign breakout rooms. You can also do random auto assign, and then you can manually assign on the fly. So how might we use breakout rooms? Well, one way is give the students a task or a question, have them think about it for a little bit and give them a chance to write and and then put them into their breakout groups, whether that's with paired or three people or a smaller group like that. There's a question: can students assign themselves to a breakout group? No, it's either basically it's the host. We're trying to find out if we can get co-hosts the ability to do that. There is a auto kind of randomly assigned, which is what you experienced today, that you can do as well. So, but yeah, the students don't. We can do small group discussions, kind of like what we did. It's kind of nice if they have a place to keep track of their results or something like that, like a external document or what have you. You can't, it's kind of hard to use the chat there, because if they put into the chat, then actually the only people that see their chat while they're in the breakout room, from what I've experienced, is the other people in the same breakout room. So you can also do a thing called peer instruction, where you would launch with a poll, and then based on the results, if there's kind of mixed results on the students getting it right, you can put them into breakout rooms, they discuss it, bring them back, poll again, and see if they've gravitated toward the correct answer, and then debrief with trying to get a student to explain why they answered the way they did as much as possible. So that's another thing. And then there's a jigsaw, which is a little more complicated, but still quite doable, where you give students assignments before class. Maybe they each have a reading. So there's a reading for group A and a different reading or a video for group B to watch, and so on and so forth for all the groups. They meet for a little while and make sure they all kind of have come to a consensus on what needs to be shared with the rest of the class. And then you put them into their jigsaw groups or teaching groups, where then a representative from each of the expert groups teaches their group what they learned as an expert group. And my students tend to love that activity. I try not to overuse it, but they really tend to love that. So you can use tools for creative collaboration. So like if you have students do something and create it on a document on their own machine, you can use screen share so that they can share what they're doing. You can use whiteboards and annotations both in the breakout rooms and in the main class. So while I'm in screen share, I can allow users to grab the annotation tool and draw on the screen and stuff, but you don't want to go too crazy with that. So so collaborative documents like we did with Google Docs. There's also things like Padlet and Jamboard, where where people can respond and share their ideas. We had a really good idea. I passed, this is from Branton. In class, I passed host controls to my TA, which makes me a co-host so they can manage the breakout groups and all that kind of stuff. And that can work. Rachel says, I wish I had a TA. That can be a rotating role among your class members too, though. Anyway, any of these collaboration things can happen either as a whole group or breakout groups. This particular question I'm not going to actually, or this particular task I'm not actually going to do, but if you guys want to get down this URL, you can do this some other time, or just get to see. I'll post it here for everybody. It's called Jamboard, and it's a new Google tool that's pretty interesting. a couple other ways to engage really quick. Have students present, conduct question and answer sessions, bring in guest speakers. Ideally, you can have students prepare questions so that they engage with the guest speaker rather than the guest speaker just talking to people. And then if you're doing group projects, actually using class time as a way or a time for the student, not all the class time, but like maybe one session a week is you're going to work on your group project together. And we put you into the breakout rooms according to your group assignments and you work. And then you and a TA, if you have a TA or whatever, can jump around and go check in on the groups and make sure they're getting things done and
Are you drawing right now,
helping
Mike?
them. Am I drawing right now? No.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Somebody was drawing in there. Okay. Go
Okay.
ahead.
All right. So let's see. So a couple last tips. Practice with the tool, practice with the pedagogies that you're going to try. And then you might want to record class for later use. If you're not going to share it with the students, you at least have it to go back and watch and do a little self-reflection. Then you can see yourself and how you're presenting and how you're using the tools, and you can make tweaks. So you've got a way to evaluate yourself, also a way for students that miss class and so forth to be able to still participate. Can I skip that? So for your exit ticket today to end, if you're still with us, how many? Oh, we've got quite a few still with us. Way to go. I'm going to ask you in the chat, please share one thing. You can share more if you want. One thing that you want to try out in your class that maybe an idea that occurred to you today, not necessarily from anything I said, but just something that maybe you were inspired to think about, because I know I'm not the fount of all wisdom, but the Spirit is. So put that in. And then if there's any other things you'd like to see in the training series, please post those as well.
Looks like we're seeing jigsaw groups.
And some people said Jamboard and practicing breakouts. Very good.
Some haven't used breakout rooms, would like to give that a try.
And polls. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Sharing
And using
documents for groups.
Yep.
So connecting participation with grades, using a TA.
Yeah, there's some. Okay, proposed hybrid approach for fall. Okay, that'll be a good discussion in a future training, I think. Deputizing students, very good. I'm glad you got that out of it.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole ceremony involved with that, right, Mike?
Yeah, exactly.
With badges and everything.
Okay, there's an agreement on more training on hybrid teaching. I need to do fixed member breakout rooms, need to know how to do that. Okay, yeah, so that would be a good thing to do some training on. We'll try to get some more Zoom specific training. More training with whiteboard, yeah. Okay, I'm glad you got some good ideas from. So we'll also have try to have the chat windows, because that's one of the sources for great ideas, because you're sharing, well, I do this and I do that and I've tried this and it's worked pretty well in the chat, that are really great ideas that we don't have enough time to share all of them. More training on polls. Okay.
And I've even seen some meta work with students where you ask students, okay, what have you done to really master this material? What techniques have you used? So if you have 100 students, they all get to reply. Maybe only 20 will reply, but it's kind of helping the students learn how to navigate your course, help them to within using the chat group.
Okay, I think you can keep posting in the chat. I think you've got those. In the slides, I have references of places where we've got some of these ideas, and others were just just from our own practice and stuff like that, but some great places for you to check for resources. And thank you for being here. So now if you have specific questions that you'd like to address now, you can continue to put those in the chat window, or you can raise your hand, or just unmute and speak up, however you would like to go. But I will watch for hand raises and everything, and you're fine to go ahead. All right, so Michael Rice, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the session. So I teach in engineering, and a lot of the learning there is devoted to students working on projects or extended homework problems.
Right.
And it occurred to me during this session that I could pre-record some lectures on the basics, have them watch those before class, and then devote a Zoom session maybe to working some of the homework problems.
Yes, excellent.
Right now, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I kind of know how this goes. Students will come to class and some of them will have questions about problem number 1. A different group will have questions about problem number 2, and they'll have number 1 nailed. So I was thinking, what if I had 3 or 4 TAs who would host Zoom sessions or breakout sessions, sorry, just on one of the particular homework problems, and then the student could elect which breakout session to participate in, because that's the one they have that breakout session is devoted to one homework problem. That's the one they have the question on. My classes tend to be large. In the fall, I'll be teaching each section 75 students for 150 total. So, you know, having me do that real time, I think is not going to be effective. So if there was a way for students to say, I want to do that breakout session because I had a question on that particular problem, that'd be awesome. But I don't see that our system allows them to do that.
No, Zoom doesn't currently allow the student to self-select. So the other thing you could do is actually have potentially have the TAs in an actual separate Zoom meeting,
Okay.
and just give the link to them and say, you know, problem 1, go to this one, or, you know, problem 1 and 3, this one, and just send them off to those.
And then they would have to re-enter the main meeting when they're done.
Later. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. I think that would work.
So that, I mean, that would be the best workaround. Or if you temporarily gave hosting duties to a TA, where you could still be talking to the students that want to stay with you for a little while, and just say message this TA, and they'll assign you to your requested room as quickly as
I'm worried
possibly
about the numbers being too big.
Yeah, it is. It could become unwieldy pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's
Class of 25 or 30, that would be easy. But
right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Other questions?
You see one in the chat there, Mike?
Okay, yes. Just in my lab, I had 7 Zoom breakout groups and two TAs, host and co-host. The TAs kept a Google spreadsheet open so that the host could record the order in which the groups raised hands for help. When either TA became free, they checked the spreadsheet to see who to help next. Okay, that's a great thing. Do you have any suggestions for effectively using chat without? Okay, Stephen, can you?
Without a TA.
Oh, without a TA.
Yeah.
I think the best thing is just have a rotating role for one of the students to be kind of deputized as a chat monitor, and then try to build in some regular either at the end of class, or even better, a few times throughout class, where you pause and then ask the monitor what questions have come in and things like that.
How
So you
big is
did-
the class, Steve?
Well, they vary a little bit, but in a larger class, I mean, I have TAs, but I'm just wondering at times if you didn't have TAs. When a TA monitors, so this seems to work quite well because they just sort of save up the questions and then we do it. So good.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can encourage the students to answer each other's questions through the chat where possible, but it does help to have a monitor to maybe say, these were the questions coming in, and so-and-so answered it, but can we get some clarification if there's any,
Good.
kind
Thanks.
of things. Great question. Thank you, Brent. Any other questions? Numbers are starting to dwindle, but I think
Is there an easy way to get poll responses into Learning Suite?
I haven't had a lot of success with it. Even when I conduct a poll, I haven't. My polling results have failed to save every time. So I'm trying to find out what the deal is with that. I'm going to be talking with the Zoom product manager to see what's going on there. If they are in with their net ID, the thing you can import into Learning Suite is a score, not the specific answers. So that becomes a little.
The score would be fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So you may have to take what they've done, and since I haven't been able to actually see results, even though I've conducted several polls, I haven't been able to see how you would manipulate the spreadsheet to then calculate a score. So that's stuff we'll have to look into, unless Ken, you've had any success with it, or Susan.
Yeah, I have the problem when operating asynchronously and have, flipping the classroom, that I guess that's a hybrid method. I don't know.
Yeah.
Half the students don't show up because they don't have to.
Yeah.
And if there were some way to record the polling results just as, kind of an attendance or participation score, that would really encourage more engagement, I think.
Mm-hmm. So the other option is to use another classroom response system that's cloud-based. So iClicker Cloud, Top Hat, there's Turning Technology. If you're using it just to take attendance, now I think engagement using classroom response systems is much more effective with engaging questions. But if you are just using it for attendance, you can actually have the students can use, you and the students can use iClicker Cloud for free. There's a way when you set up your course, if you say I'm using it for attendance only, the students don't have to pay a subscription fee. So so that you can keep that in mind. It's pretty easy. In my class winter, I was using iClicker Cloud, and that's how I kind of kept track of student responses and stuff like that. So I didn't really bother because I already had questions built into my slide presentations. And since iClicker Cloud just works over the top of whatever you're using to present, it was the easiest solution. Lisa asked, how do we learn to use iClicker Cloud? We just posted on Teach Anywhere a session that we had yesterday with the rep from iClicker Cloud. And she goes through basically step-by-step how to set up your course and how to present questions. So I would suggest you start there. And then if you have further questions, just contact us here at the CTL, and we can, myself and Scott Schaefermeyer and a couple other people can walk you through using that if you want to do that. So, so other questions? These are great questions. Keep them coming.
Lori had a question about starting and ending with a pause, and could you explain a little bit more?
Okay, so so beginning with a pause is, the idea is, don't just jump into content presentations. Stop, give the students a quick task to do. I mean, that's partially just the icebreaker, just to get them maybe talking to each other, but it can also involve content. So like asking them a review question from a previous session so that they start thinking about your content area again and move from worrying about life to thinking about what we're going to be doing in class. It can also be, if they had some preparation that they were supposed to do, watch a mini video or a mini lecture or several mini lectures, or do a reading or something like that. You might ask them some comprehension questions or things like that. Or anyway, that book that I showed back here, this Hit Pause 65 Lecture Breaks to Refresh and Reinforce Learning, she has a bunch broken down by before, during, and after pauses that you can use. It's not a technical term. It just means stop lecturing and ask a student a question or whatever. So you're pausing your lecture to, but you can use these regardless of what type of class format you're looking at. An ending pause is where you do something to either have the students review what you've just taught them during class, to try to take an attempt at applying what they've been learning in class, to evaluate their own understanding, to commit to a next step of action, like kind of what we did with our exit ticket is a type of closing pause, right? So we asked you to consider one thing you're going to try out, right? That's a kind of make a commitment to try something that we learned about, right? And to think about other things, other needs you have, right? So there's an approach to reading as well as other teaching called KWL, what I know, what I want to learn, and what I've learned. And so that can be a thing like at the beginning, you can ask, what do you already know about this subject? So that's an opening pause. You can also ask them, what do you want to learn? That's another opening pause. And then at the end, you can ask them, okay, what have you learned? And then you might ask them, what still doesn't make sense? So what's it's also called muddiest point. So that can be another way to close class. And it gives the student a chance to self-evaluate. It also gives you a chance to get feedback from the students on what they're understanding and what they're not, and what you might need to readdress next time, or offer them additional resources or those kinds of things that allows you to do some evaluation of your teaching. So does that explain better what we mean by pauses? And certainly the during pauses are just an opportunity to think about what they've just learned, to discuss it with a classmate, to try something using what they've learned, any of those kinds of things.
Thank you. Enormously helpful.
Okay. Any other questions? Because we actually are over the top of the hour, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad you're interested enough to stick around, and the fact that we even still have 12 left at this time, that's pretty amazing. So either you're engaged and curious, or you zoned out and you didn't realize the meeting was over.
And you left to go to the store. How about that one?
Yeah, that could be it.
Good idea. Thank you, Mike.
But-
That was
but
really
no-
helpful.
Oh, I'm glad, Barbara. I'm glad that none of you changed your screen name to reconnecting. So thank you. All right, we'll see y'all later.
It's a great idea, though.
Yeah, it's
Well done,
genius.
Mike. Well done, Mike. That was great.
Okay, we'll
see
talk
ya.
to y'all later.
Thank
See ya.
It was great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.